It's showtime, baby. Let's go. Woo!
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. This is Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm your host, Iceman Jeff Trunapole, and as always, I bring you sports from a West Side point of view right here in the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio, home of some of the best barbecue around. Check it out. It is Midwest Best Barbecue. If you have not been there, please do me a favor. Go check it out this weekend. Go get you some CTB wings. Get you some Uno wings. Get you some delicious pulled pork sandwiches. It's nice and cold here. Go warm up with some delicious Midwest Best Barbecue. And as always, I am coming to you live from this glorious place down there. It's the Ice Cave. The Ice Cave is brought to you by T Properties. T Properties, quality housing for quality people. Check out their website at www.tpropertiesllc.com for all your rental property management needs and your rental needs. And you know what? I got the hoodie on today. We hit the jackpot when we drafted Joe Burrow. Make sure you're geared up for this year because we're going to win the Super Bowl. Go to jackpotjoey9.com. Remember, portions of the proceeds go to the Joe Burrow Hunger Relief Fund and the Joe Burrow Foundation. And one more thing. Is it cold in your house? Well, might want to get some new windows or doors. That might help you out. Help me out down here in the Ice Cave. It's not as cold down here as it used to be. Last year, I got new windows and doors from Meyer Door and Window. Make sure you check them out. They give free estimates, and they are great, wonderful people. I highly, highly recommend them. What is up to everybody in the chat? We got strangers in there, and right now he's the only one in the chat because it's early. It's 2 o'clock. We're doing an early show today. But if you're watching the show, please check it out. I'm live streaming on ZTV, YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble. And if you're listening to it on a podcast, it's on Beatpod, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher Play, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Please make sure you rate, like, and review. We got a very special guest today. Like I said, coming today earlier. He is Kent Lee. He is the creator of the RAS score, Relative Athletic Scores. And he is literally at the NFL Combine helping out there. So I appreciate his time. Let's get to Kent. Kent, what's going on, brother?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Good. I see the mustache is still intact. I'm very, very happy about that. I missed the bowler hat, though. Where's the hat at?
Somewhere around here. Oh, right here. We're good. We're good.
All right,
there
we go. There. Now I feel better. Get the mustache and the hat. So how you been, man? It's been a little while since you've been on. Everything going good for you?
Fantastic, man. I came down to the NFL Combine because I usually work during the Combine. It was never really an option to come down. It's not going to work the way that I'd hoped as far as posting during the Combine, but it's definitely worth coming down here. I've had a lot of fun meeting people and being able to talk football pretty much all the time with so many different people. It's been a blast.
Awesome. So do you actually have some of the NFL teams, are they reaching out to you while you're down there, or are you just down there for yourself?
I'm mostly down here for me. I wasn't planning on coming down here until like last week. So my planning has not been super great. I haven't met with anybody from the NFL teams yet. I'm supposed to be meeting with a couple today. I've met with a couple of folks from the college teams. Actually met some folks from Princeton, talked to them about Andre Osifis yesterday. Had a really good time talking to a bunch of folks from the college level. I haven't talked to any NFL folks just yet.
Right. All right, so let's get to our first question. If you guys got any questions or comments or anything, put it in the chat here. And this is from a stranger, and he's talking about one of his favorite players. And one of mine, too, because, dude, big man was moving the other day on that 40-yard dance. He was five something, but he's like 366. But Devontae Sweat. Let's see here. He said, I have no idea what Travion Sweat has for RAS, but I know I want him regardless. What is his RAS score, by the way?
It ended up fairly low, but you're talking about a guy that's 366 pounds. This isn't a guy that you should even expect to have a high score.
Right.
But he ended up in the fours, which for a nose tackle is really good. They generally don't test well at all. And while he didn't test well in any specific area, for a guy that big, he's fine, you know?
Right.
He scored better than DJ Reader and Snack Harrison and guys like that. You know, he's got the metrics that you want for a nose tackle.
Yeah, it's ridiculous watching that guy as big as he is and just watching him move. Like I said, that 40 time was 5 something yesterday, and you're like, oh well, 5 something. That's terrible. I was like, he's 366 or something like that. I'm like, dude, that is absolutely just ridiculous. Now, where are you at as far as let's go back to where for the Bengals here for the guys that they drafted and their RAS scores, or how it's their RAS scores from last year and how it's projected and computed into this past season.
So I posted all of the last 4 drafts for all of the NFL teams a few days ago, just to show what those trends have looked like. We wanted to go into the combine kind of knowing the type of trends that your team is looking for. The Bengals are generally high athletic guys everywhere except the offensive line, and I'll come back to that.
Upgrade that. Yeah.
But when it comes to defensive players, especially defensive linemen and corners, the Bengals have always liked the really big athletes. They like bigger athletes. They like fast guys, explosive guys. They like the well-rounded athletes. I mentioned Andre Josephus on offense. Chase Brown's another one, was very well-rounded athlete, as well as a top-tier one. The offensive line is an area where I'm sure it's been a pain point for you. It's a lot of Bengals fans mention it to me as a pain point, and I have no idea why they've done so, but they've had almost like they're focused on guys that aren't athletic for a while now.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I'm hoping that changes in the very near future, but it's definitely a point of contention for a lot of Bengals fans, and the data bears that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've put a lot of money into the offensive line, and it's gotten better. But that's exactly what you're saying is what I keep saying is we need to get a more athletic offensive line to get these guys to be able to get out there in space and move. And with that being said, I think unless I always preface it this way, it depends on what the Bengals do in free agency. But as of right now, if we're drafting today and we didn't sign anybody, which I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Bengals are going to sign somebody. I think we're going offensive lineman at 18, and it's probably right tackle. But Jackson Powers Johnson, that guy, I know he's a center / guard. And he's also played tackle. He's kind of what we're just talking about, the athleticism that we're talking about. What's his RAS score?
He hasn't tested yet.
Okay.
I expect he's going to test well, though. I haven't seen anybody telling me that they expect him to test poorly. I know for the Bengals, I had been asked when the last time they had drafted a top tier athlete on the offensive line was, and it was Jake Fisher in 2015.
Oh wow!
So it's a long time. It's almost been a decade since they've drafted a top flight athlete anywhere on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. So if they're going to go on the interior, that's the kind of guy that you want to look for. Center doesn't necessarily have the same correlation to success as some of the other positions do. The numbers wise, it's right up there with guard. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of guys that we've had in the last few years that didn't have great scores. Rodney Hudson was the biggest example lately. Center is a very cerebral position. It requires you to be very strong north of the neckline.
Yes.
You know, and it doesn't necessarily rely on athleticism as much in general. Now, a lot of offensive lines, the Colts, the Packers, the Eagles, the Lions, the Cowboys, they do require an athletic center because they put that guy on the move quite a bit.
Right.
The Lions have Frank Ragnow. The Eagles have Kelsey. You know, if that's what the Bengals try to do and they try to go on the move with their offensive line more, I would expect that they're going to find one of the most athletic guys that they can and plug them in there. Same thing for the guard positions because you want a guy that's going to be active and mobile there.
Right, exactly. Bring up Frank Ragnow. That's a guy that the Bengals had targeted a couple years ago to trying
I
to give
remember it
him.
was great.
Oh,
I have a lot of Bengals fans, and they were all mad at me,
yeah.
like I had
It's
anything to
all
do
your
with
fault,
it.
Kent. It's all your fault. Because the freaking Lions took him anyway. All right, let's see here. Jeremy here's got a question for you. He said, oh, not that one, 18. No, is this a stranger? Put this up here. RAS for Ben Stinnett and tight end, also Braylon Allen, running back. Because it's today's the offensive lineman today, right?
No, we've got defensive backs and tight ends today.
Okay, okay.
So Benson hasn't tested yet, but he will today.
Okay.
I haven't heard if he's had any injuries or anything like that, but if he's got a clean bill of health, I would expect him to test today. We had defensive linemen yesterday and linebackers. Today's going to be the super fast, explosive defensive backs and
Right.
a pretty strong tight end class too.
Yeah, that would be that's gonna be interesting for me, tight end, because I if you would have told me that the Bengals would not have drafted not one single tight end last year, with one of the best tight end classes in a recent memory, I would have said you're crazy. But we're in the same spot where we were last year. Is we need a tight end, and there's really only two that are up here. Everybody else is kind of down here. Is there anybody like that that you would put up? Like you said, I don't think the tight ends have actually done everything yet, but put up there, that would be worth drafting probably for the Bengals. I would say third, fourth round, late round tight ends that you know of.
Yeah, this isn't as strong of a class as last year. Most classes aren't as strong of a class as last year.
Yeah.
But you already mentioned Benson. Brevin Spanford is another guy I'm looking to see how he tests. Tanner McLaughlin, I'm hoping to see how he tests. Trey Knox. These are guys that in general could benefit in terms of drafts. I mean, everybody can benefit from
Right.
having a good combine. But there's some question marks about their ability to move laterally. Not all of them, but individually, you have some guys that were the question about whether they can move laterally, whether they have the explosiveness that you really want from the tight end position. This combine so far has had a lot of guys, putting those questions to bed in terms of testing. If that trend continues with the tight ends, we might see some of those guys start to bounce up boards. Right now, though, it's still a one-man show with Brock Bowers at the top.
Yeah, I mean that dude. I think he would have been number one last year if he would have came out. I mean, that's how.
He's been up there.
Yeah, it's I mean, even with that class. I mean, he'd be very nice to get 18, but I mean, we got other issues. We need a right tackle. We need an interior defensive line. If we had fixed some of these problems, or we probably could get him. But like I said, I think that's reached. Now, I'm planning on going to the combine tomorrow because. Tomorrow to me is the fun day. Tomorrow's the quarterbacks. You get to see dropping bombs and all that stuff. Where as far as which again they didn't test yet, but where are you at right now as far as the top 5 quarterbacks for what you've gathered so far?
In terms of testing or actual scouting, because that's kind of a different answer.
Well, do you have enough information for you don't have enough information for RAS right now, right?
No, but I mean, what I expect guys to test at,
Okay.
I expect Jaden Daniels to test really well. We know that Caleb Williams isn't testing. I'm keeping an eye on Spencer Rattler. This is a guy that was at the very top of people's boards and then dropped down to the very bottom of people's boards, and then he's kind of been clawing his way back up, trying to find his way back up there. If he's able to show that he has some of that athleticism that some of these guys don't really have, that would be really big for him. The same is true for Bo Nix and Michael Penix. Both of those guys really need to show that they have some of that athleticism. And then in Penix's case, the medicals. I'm not sure that we're going to see Drake May test either. Who is the other one? Devin Leary was another guy that I think is going to test pretty well in this class. It's a pretty athletic class. I don't know that there's, aside from maybe Jaden Daniels, there isn't really a guy that really jumps out at me as like a top flight athlete at quarterback. But it's going to be interesting to see how they come out.
One thing as a Bengals fan, I hope all these quarterbacks do awesome because it's a quarterback-driven league, and they all start drafting a whole bunch of quarterbacks. In the first,
everybody else.
Yeah, you can let everybody else drop down to us, and we can have our choice there. But I mean, there is a chance that, like you said, Bo Nix, I think, is one. Rattler is another one. McCullough, the quarterback from Michigan. I always say his name wrong.
JJ
McCarthy,
McCarthy.
thank you. Those are guys right there that my personal opinion is if they kill it at the combine and do really good at their pro days or whatever, could jump up because everybody's always looking for that quarterback, you know. So some teams might just be like, you know, they might pull a trigger on him and go get him more, go up and get him. Do you think that is something that possibly could happen? That there's one of these guys that are outside the top, well, I say top four that you could see jump up and some team falls in love with him and goes up and gets him earlier than you expected?
There's a lot of chatter down here for JJ McCarthy. He's the guy that I would expect to make that jump.
Right.
Jaden Daniels is not really much of a secret anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. No.
So I don't know that he's sneaking up on anybody, but JJ McCarthy is the guy that I think is really going to be the beneficiary of good testing if he tests really well. Joe Milton's another guy that if he tests really well, he might jump up some boards. I don't think he's going to jump up into that day one consideration anytime soon.
What about Bo Nix? Because he started off the season really well, and then he kind of plateaued a little. Where are you at on him?
Bo Nix has also played for like 37 years already.
Well, to me, that's a good thing. I think. I don't know. I mean, I don't. If you played a lot of college games, got a lot of starts. I mean, that should translate as a good thing. You would think.
For me, that generally falls into whether you can be a good backup, getting experience with different offensive styles, getting experience facing different defenses helps you a lot that way. But generally, when you have quarterbacks that play that long, the reason isn't because they're so good and they just want to keep playing in college. It's because they're not quite there to go pro, right? And I kind of feel like that's where Bo Nix has been. He's been kind of floating around in that I'm kind of almost there range for a long time. The Lions drafted Hendon Hooker in the 3rd round last year, and Hendon Hooker was in the same kind of boat. He did finish off really strong, and Bo Nix is also kind of finishing off pretty strong. So it could move him up into that day 2 stuff. I'm not buying into him as a day 1 guy though.
Okay. Brady's up here for stranger because he was the big Zach Kuntz guy last year. He said, I remember my favorite player, RAS, last year was Mr. Perfect 10, Zach Kuntz, at tight end. That's when he kept banging the drum for the Bengals to try and draft last year. And, well, they could have, but they didn't. Like I said, I'm going to be there Saturday. Are you still going to be down there Saturday?
I'm going to be down there today, and then I'm heading back tomorrow morning.
Okay. So we'll be crossing paths. If you drive back home, I'll be driving there. Now, for people who don't know, and I always ask you to do this because some people, not everybody knows what the RAS score is and how you come up with it. Because you're the one that came up with this whole thing. What just explain to people who don't know what it is, exactly what it is, and how you came up with it.
Yeah, RAS is intended to be a 0 to 10 metric that compares player testing to all of the players at the position from 1987 all the way to today. The idea of putting everything on a 0 to 10 is because it's very easy to understand. Everybody can understand 0 to 10. 0 is not going to be a good score, right? And if you have 0 to 10, 10 is obviously the good one. The cards themselves that I post are all stoplight color coded, red, yellow, and green. Makes it very easy to understand. NFL teams have their own testing metrics that they use. They have their own analytics departments. They have dedicated teams with information that we're never going to have access to in the public.
Right.
But what RAS allows us to do is it gives us an analog that we can use that's at least close to what NFL teams are using. And you really see it with teams like the Colts and the Packers, where they draft high RAS guys almost every round, every year, or every round if you're the Colts.
Right.
The idea is not making some perfect metric that will tell you if a guy's going to be successful or not, because that doesn't exist. The idea is trying to find a really good way to display player athleticism that's intuitive and easy to understand, and is measurable, is trackable, because you can use it because it's a number to draw on trends and try to find any kind of trends and correlations between both the overall athletic score and individual testing metrics if you want to.
Now, one thing I'm curious about is a Bengal player here. What his RAS score is Jake Browning, because of how good he did this year, and I'm pretty sure he was undrafted. I think it was because he got injured in college. But where was his RAS score and how it translates to how just this year, how good he did this year for us.
Jake Browning, the quarterback from Washington.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he didn't test all that well. He had a RAS of 5.7. None of his scores were in elite range. He's an undersized quarterback. He's under 6'2". He's only 211 pounds when he came out. I'm pretty sure he's closer to 220 now. I'm not certain. Don't quote me, but I'm
Yeah.
in the back of my head. I think I remember seeing that.
Right.
He's not super fast, but he's definitely not slow. He's not super quick, but he's definitely not rigid. He's one of those guys that's just he doesn't have a lot of bad traits. And you can do a lot of stuff with a guy that doesn't have a lot of bad traits. From an athletic standpoint, that gives you some options. He isn't a burner at quarterback. He's not Anthony Richardson out there, but he's fast enough that he can outrun a lot of linebackers and some defensive linemen. That gives you some options if he has to scramble. That gives you some play calling opportunities because you can put him on the run if you need to. All the passing stuff we can't really look into with RAS because it's not a passing metric. It's just an athletic metric.
Right.
But from an athletic standpoint, you have a lot of options with a guy that just doesn't have a lot of serious flaws.
Now, where are you at? Because we talk about with the Bengals and they need to get a more athletic offensive line. Well, we can go with scouting on this. Where are you at with the right tackle market and who? I know we're not going to get the top guys, but there is going to be somebody there at 18 worth drafting. Where are you at? I guess around 18, the guys that you think possibly could be that would fit well in with the Bengals.
It's a really good class for offensive tackles. Not just at the top. I mean, we have Joe Alt, Ola Fashanu, and the guy from Oregon State. We've got some really good options at offensive tackle in this draft. But it's a fairly deep class, and there's some really good options beyond just those top guys. I would expect there to be at least 4, maybe 5, maybe as many as 6 offensive linemen or offensive tackles taken in the first round.
Right.
It's going to be a battle between the tackles and cornerbacks this year. But if the Bengals are up for taking a tackle in the first round, they're going to have some options. Even if you get past those first 3 or 4, they're going to have some options to take a guy early.
What's your thoughts on the kid Mims out of Georgia and the kid out of Oklahoma? I cannot think of his name right now. Oh crud, I can't remember his name right now. He did really well in the Senior Bowl. Those are 2 that I've kind of had my eye on. Mims, I don't know if he's going to fall to us or not. A lot of people talking against him is that he hasn't started a lot of games. Does that come into factor at all for you? Probably not because it's not athletic, but I mean, we talk about McCarthy has played a lot of games, Bo Nix has played a lot of games. Now Mims hasn't played a lot of games. Just for you personally watching football, where does that? How do you hold that relative to how they're going to project to the NFL?
Being able to play a lot of games is more a statement of durability than it is actual gameplay ability. But it isn't a bad sign if you have a guy that's played a lot of games. College football, from an individual position standpoint, is very competitive. It's not like the NFL where you have only a couple of backups. You've got more than a few backups that you can try to push in. And most teams have some kind of backup plan where they're pulling guys in from other positions if needed. They're willing to play guards inside out. You don't see that in the NFL very often, but that happens all the time in college.
Right.
They're willing to move tight ends over to offensive tackle, and some teams actually plan that. That's part of their scouting is drafting or bringing in offense or tight ends as recruits, and then turning them into offensive linemen. So it's a plan for that. So not having a lot of starts is less of a red flag because you really just want to evaluate the starts that they have. If a guy has injury concerns and he doesn't have a lot of starts, that's not an experience question. That's a durability question. If you have a guy that's got a clean bill of health and he doesn't have a whole lot of starts, but his starts are good, I don't think that's really a question. I think you're still looking at a durability question and you're waiting for those medicals to come in to see if there's any underlying condition. Maybe he just hasn't missed time yet, Right. But if a guy doesn't have a lot of starts and there's a clean bill of health and there's no real concerns there, I don't think that it's that big of a deal. For Amarius Mims and J.C. Latham was the Alabama kid. Those are both guys that I think have a really good shot to start in the league. Kingsley Suamataya from Brigham Young's another guy that I think has a really good chance to start in the league. And you're not going to have to get those guys super high, except for
Right.
maybe Mims.
Yeah, Mims. I don't know. That's iffy. He shouldn't be there. All right. So a couple other positions for the Bengals. Like I said, interior defensive line. We're talking about Sweat. Um, Brian from Texas, his teammate from Texas is awesome. I don't think we can get him. Sweat. I keep holding out hope that he'll be there in the second round, just because people get scared of his weight and everything. But as far as the interior defensive line go, where are you at on them?
So we don't have a very good strong class for interior pass rushers, like we've had in the past. Devondre Sweat being a higher rated player is kind of indicative of that because he's a nose guy. He's a very good nose guy. He's got a lot of talent in that area. But when we had the testing come in yesterday for the 2024 interior guys, and it was really good. We had a lot of really strong testers in this class for the interior defensive line. One of the highest scorers of the whole class was Braden Fisk out of Florida State.
Yeah.
He had a mediocre bench, and it dropped him all the way to 21st out of 1,600 defensive tackles.
Jeez.
So yeah, and that's with a above average but not great
Right.
bench score.
Right.
Rook or Horo, I can never say his name right. It's really hard for me to articulate that. But out of Clemson, another guy that tested really well. One of my guys was Marshawn Nealand. He's also a guy that the Lions have their eye on. So if you guys want to get back at us for stealing Rag now, that's going to be the target, I think.
Yeah, just let everybody know. Kent's a Detroit Lion fan, so just let everybody know that.
And then another one would be Chris Jenkins out of
Yeah.
Michigan. Of course, he's got that NFL pedigree. He also tested really well. One to watch would be Darius Robinson out of Missouri. He played defensive end last year, played edge last year, and he did really well. But he's still a bigger guy, and he tested like bigger guys test. He didn't test very well for an edge. He didn't test bad, but he didn't test great for an edge. But he tested very well for an interior defensive lineman, and some teams still view him that way. They still view him as an interior guy. And he's already said that he's willing to do either, wherever teams need him. That kind of versatility, teams value that kind of versatility, being able to switch inside and outside as needed. And you have a guy that's athletic enough to do it and has the willingness to do it. That's something to look out for.
Now, when we brought this up that you're a Lions fan, and I just got to ask because a lot of us Bengals fans started to, toward the end of the last year, relate to Bengals fans or Lions fans as far as how your season was going and back for what we went through in 2021. What was that like last year for you? Because I just remember myself as a Bengals fan, we won our first playoff game in 30 years or however long it was. I don't remember. It was so long. It was such a long time. And you guys made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. Just what was that run like, just as a fan?
So I was 8 the last time they won a playoff game.
Wow.
And I didn't exist the last time that they won a playoff game before that. And most Lions fans weren't alive the time that they won before that. Right. We've only had that one win in most of our lifetimes, and now we've got 3. So it's nice to get that. You always want the team to build from it. You never want to be content with that. I know as a Bengals fan, you already know you can't be content with just making the playoffs. No. Eventually, you got to start winning.
Well, you want to get that ring. You want to get that ring.
So once you start winning playoff games, the ring is the next thing, right?
Right.
So a lot of Lions fans are surprisingly grounded about that, and the fact that they didn't make it past the NFC Championship game doesn't really strike such a negative chord with us because we realize how momentous it was to get there in the first place, having coming from a very long history of being a loser, pathetic team most of the time.
Right.
Now they're on what appears to be the right track, and what's great about this team is on top of actually winning football games and going into the postseason is they feel like they're built to win, like they're built to last.
Yeah.
That's
what the Bengals felt too. I mean, that's the way it felt for us too.
There's a couple of little things that they've got to get worked out, and they've got to figure out how to work. Which one of the worst ones is kicker. For some reason, Brad Holmes can find players at any position in any round except kicker.
Ours is punter.
Terrible. it's weird how people have those blind spots, but
Yeah.
the team feels like it's built to win long term. It feels like they have a plan and they're sticking to that plan and it's working. We've had it in the past where a team had a plan and then they didn't stick to it and it fell apart. We've had it in the past where the team didn't have a plan and they just kind of winged it and that didn't work either. You can only go so far with that. And we've had times where the team has a plan and it's just a garbage plan and it doesn't work.
Right. Yep.
We were coming off of that with
you know,
Matt
you
Patricia's
sound
team.
Bengals fans and Lions fans. We sound like we had the same story.
Sometimes
it's funny how that happens. And hey, I'm down for it if we want to meet in the Super Bowl down there in New Orleans this year. That sounds good to me. But it happens. Joe's undefeated down there. Just saying. Anyway, all right, let's get back to this here. All right, so you created the RAS, and you actually got to the point where NFL teams are actually, are they actually? I think I answered before, but they're actually reaching out to you now to check RAS scores or anything. Is that how it's working, or how does that work?
Individual scouts do from time to time, where they just want to see what the guys that they're interested in. They want to know what they look like. We're at the point now. I mean, this has been going on for a decade. There's a lot of scouts that are going to NFL teams that started by scouting the same way that a lot of us do. They go on YouTube and they watch as many videos as they can, and they look at stuff like RAS. A lot of guys that are coming into the league as scouts, the newer scouts, they're familiar with it and they know that it's a useful tool. They've still got access to all the internal stuff and all the metrics that they have. But I still get guys that just want to see. They just want to see. They're curious what those scores are.
Have you ever had a player reach out to you like, "Hey"?
All the time. It's usually, "Hey, you got my time wrong," and you don't. But that's because a lot of times the players will get told whatever the best time is, and that's the one they remember. It's just whatever the best time was.
It's not the official time.
Yeah, but it's not the official one. And I keep records of everything that I get for the pro days and for the combine, so that when I do have those instances, I'm going to say, "Hey, thanks for reaching out. Here's the data that I'm using.
Right.
If you have something else," because sometimes we have, and I've actually had a few instances where I've changed player data because of something that a player has given me. But if they have a official proof that they ran a different time or ran a better time, I'll use that if they have it. I had that twice actually last year, both of which were players that went to multiple pro days. They went to 2 different pro days and they had better times at a different one. I only had the one set of numbers, but they were able to get with their agent, get me that second set of numbers. I updated it because it's official data.
Right.
Very, very occasionally, I'll get a very angry player who scored poorly.
And they're mad at you like it's your fault.
Yes, they're mad at me like it's my fault. And I had Isaiah Likely reach out to me when I was posting about his testing. Isaiah Likely went to the Ravens. He didn't test as well as a lot of people expected, myself included. And I've talked about tight ends before. You generally just have to be a great athlete at tight end to be successful. There aren't really any good examples of lower scoring guys. But when I talked about Isaiah Likely, I mentioned that if anybody is going to buck that trend, it's going to be Isaiah Likely. I can't say I'm confident in it because I'm still a data guy and the data says no. But if anybody were to be the first tight end to have a good receiving season and have a low RAS, it would be him. And he was grateful that I talked about it in that way, and he was very, very polite, very cool guy. It's rare that you get the rude players. It's actually more common that you get rude player parents.
Oh yeah, you can't be talking about my baby like that. What's wrong with you? All right, so let's get to another position for the Bengals, which again I think it's gonna be late round because I really do think the first 2 picks are gonna be offensive line and the interior defensive line. That's my personal opinion, but another one we gotta look at is running back, which we did last year, and I think we gotta address it again this year. I think we need to add to that room
every year. Draft one every year.
Yeah, where are you at on the running backs? Highest to lowest, or where do you got there?
Yeah, this is a really weak running back class. We don't have any Jahmyr Gibbses or what's his name? Went to the Falcons. Bijan Robinson. We don't have any guys like that. This class doesn't have a super deep class of really strong running backs that are going to go really high. We're probably not going to have a first round running back. We might only have one second round running back. I don't expect it to be a really strong class in terms of that position. It doesn't mean that you just write everybody off, though. I mean,
Right.
people still got to play, and there's a lot of positions at running back. A lot of people will come in and play, as backups. Our highest rated running back right now is Trey Benson out of Florida State. I haven't watched enough of him to really come with a good opinion on his play style and his ability to go pro. The only guy that I've really watched any volume of is Blake Corum from Michigan. I'm not a Michigan guy, but we had the championship run, so we watched a lot of him this year.
Right.
Marshawn Lloyd out of USC, who I think is a pretty decent mid-round option, and Isaiah Davis out of South Dakota State, who I think is a guy that could potentially jump up some boards if he tests really well. But it's not a strong class at running back for a starter. You want some role players. There's plenty of those guys. There's plenty of guys that you can get to jump in and be your power guy or be your speed guy.
Yeah,
But
that's
there
kind of where
isn't really a lot of well-rounded players here.
that's kind of where the Bengals are at with Chase Brown, and assuming they keep Corey did Joe Mixon on the team here, we need to add to that room. But Chase Brown, what was your RAS on him last year?
He had a really high RAS, I'm pretty sure. If I remember, it was like 9.8 something.
He also
Which
ran
was way
22.
up there.
He also ran 22 miles an hour in a game. Dude
Yeah.
can fly. So I'm
Yeah,
looking for hopefully a big year from him this year.
9.81. The only thing that he got dinged for is size. Ran a 4.43, which is 93rd percentile. And then a 40-inch vert, which is 97th percentile. 10.7 broad, which is 95th percentile. All of his individual tests except for size were above 90th percentile.
Nice. That's where I now he unfortunately got injured at the beginning of the year. They didn't really get to use him until the second half of the year. I'm looking at it this year that I think they are going to add to that room, but I think he is going to be, I won't say the bell cow, but I think he'll be the number one priority. And then if they keep mixing, which I think they're going to, but they keep mixing, that's going to be the straight line guy. I guess is the way that I see the Bengals running back room, but they need to add to that. Now another one that the Bengals might be looking at is secondary position, safeties, cornerbacks. Where do you have the razzle on both those rooms?
So that's what we're going to get today. Excuse me. That's what we're going to get today. This is a very strong cornerback class. I expect to see a lot of really high scores for the corners. The safety class isn't really as strong, but I still expect to get a couple of guys that test really well there. We've got some reliable information about a couple of players that are going to test almost off the charts, if not completely off the charts in terms of agility testing. So I'm very excited to see what those numbers look like if these guys actually go out and do it. A lot of players skip the agility drills at the combine. The scheduling changes that they made a few years ago at the combine have really limited the amount of players that do the agility drills in the bench.
Right.
Bench isn't really a concern for the cornerbacks, but this is a really strong corner class, and it's one of those pick your poison. If you want to get a bigger guy, they've got bigger guys. If you want to get a small, quick guy, there's a lot of them, and most of them are pretty dang good. So I'm very excited to watch the cornerback class today. I'll be heading over there here in just a few to go check that out and see where they're coming out. But I expect some big numbers from this corner class.
Now, one thing I'm curious about, you mentioned bench there. How does the bench press? How does that track or I don't want to put this? How much does that affect their RAS? Or is that something that you do use? Do you put that into the numbers of the RAS too? Is their bench?
Yeah, the bench press is included in RAS, and they're all metrics are weighted equally, so it's weighted just as much as the 40 dash or the vert, the broad, all that stuff is weighted individually. The bench is kind of off on its own, though. We have the vert and the broad for explosiveness, we have the shuttle and cone for agility, we have the 40 and the splits for speed, height and weight for size, and then just bench. Like the bench is just off on its own.
Yeah, bench is more, I guess, just for how strong you are. I guess, or
kind of. It's one of those things where it's not even really a good measurement of strength, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I guess that's kind of where I'm going because like everything else you just said, I understand how it translates to playing football. And the bench, right. I mean, if you're an offensive lineman or whatever, and keep a guy in front of you or defensive lineman, push them off. So it does translate a little bit, but not for every position. I mean, you can go have a guy and set the record for the benches as a cornerback, and does that really? Yeah.
All that usually tells me is that they have short arms. That's what that usually tells
Right.
me.
Yeah. There you go.
It's basic physics. Anybody knows anything about basic physics and how levers work? That's usually the culprit when you have a guy that has a ridiculous bench. It's usually just because he has short arms, because he doesn't have to push as far as hard, doesn't have to put as much weight behind it. When you have guys that don't bench as well, Darius Robinson yesterday didn't bench all that well. Darius Robinson has really long arms. I don't care that he didn't bench all that well. He's still strong on the football field. It's just physics works against him when you're trying to do the bench, you know?
I've always said that.
It's notable when you have a guy with long arms who benches well.
Yeah.
And it's notable when you have a guy with short arms who doesn't bench well. But anything else, it's pretty much just long arm guy equals low bench, short arm guy equals high bench. So maybe I'll just flip that out and just use arm length instead of bench.
There you go. I always remember this in high school. You'd have to go try to do the pull-ups or whatever, and these little guys were like, my big ass is trying to struggle to get two of them up there. They're all making fun of me. You're that big, you should be able to pull yourself up. Like, dude, look how much more I got to pull up than you do. I'm like, come on, give me a break here. But that's the same thing. It's arm length, and it is a factor of how, like you said, physics. You don't have to push the bar but as hard. That's one thing I've always. Not that I think they take that out of the combine, but that's where I'm kind of getting to the point where I don't know how much that actually translates, except for what you just said there about your arms, and you can figure that out by measuring them anyway. Anyway, Kent, you've been on for 41 minutes. I know you got to get over to the combine. I appreciate you coming on again. You've done this every year for me, so it's been awesome to get to know you. I was hoping to actually meet you in person tomorrow, but you're going to go back to Michigan, so whatever. But do me a favor and plug some stuff. Tell everybody about RAS and what you got going on.
Yeah, all of my work can be found at ras.football. I posted a link for the NFL Combine measurements on my Twitter profile earlier, so if you want to go straight to the Combine measurements, you can go there. I'm updating as the Combine is going on. You can follow along on my Twitter account. I was supposed to be doing it on Threads and Facebook, but I had a catastrophic site issue right as the Combine started yesterday.
Of course.
So I'm kind of isolated to Twitter today. I'm hoping to get everything else back up tomorrow when I'm back at my office and able to work at my computer. But you can find all of my stuff at ras.football. You can check out my Twitter profile at MathBomb. It's the same on TikTok, which I haven't posted anything yet, but I will be. It's also the same on Facebook, and then I think it's MathBomb Raz on Threads. You can also check out the Pro Football Network mock draft simulator that I run. I curate that. I modify the rankings and do all coding and change trade logic and things like that, team needs, things like that. A lot of fun if you like trying to pretend you're a GM for a little bit.
A lot of people do.
And I get to start entering in RAS for that stuff here this week too, which shows up on the player profiles. So it's always a fun bit.
That'll be fun to see how it changes once you get all that information in. Anyway, Kent, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, it's still draft season. I'll try to get you back on again here when we get closer to the draft, especially after I have a better idea what the Bengals I think are going to do after free agency. That to me that's for a Bengals fan now that we actually do stuff in free agency. That's where I'm more like, okay, we got an idea of what they might do. So you got to figure what they're going to do in free agency. But anyway, Kent, appreciate you, brother. You take it easy.
You too, man. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that much as I did. Kent is awesome. Like I said, go follow him. Go check him out there on Twitter, Threads. Like I said, his Facebook and all that's down right now, but go check him out there. It's pretty interesting stuff. He runs the Pro Football Network simulator, so he's going to put all the RAS in next week, which that'll be interesting for everyone who likes doing the mock drafts and stuff every day or whatever, how it changes. So go check that out there. Thanks for watching. I've been live streaming on ZTV, YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble. If you're listening on the podcast, what's up? It's you can check it out on Beatpod, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher Play, pretty much wherever you get your podcast. I always say, please make sure you rate, like, and review. Go check out Midwest Best Barbecue this weekend. They are delicious, juicy, wonderful wings. I make myself hungry every time I talk about them. They, like I said, CTB wings. The G-Funk is what their first famous one. That is good. pulled pork sandwiches, all kinds of stuff they have going on there. It's the beginning of the month, so the third Saturday of this month, they have ribs. And I'm not telling you, they are unbelievable. I highly, highly recommend third Saturday of the month, go check out their ribs at Midwest Best Barbecue. Also, we got Meyer Door and Window. With this weather we have right now, where, 2 days ago, we could be wearing shorts. Today, we're out there and bundling up. You want to make sure you have really good windows and doors for your house, so you make sure your house is a nice, comfortable temperature. I got new windows and doors from our Doors and Windows a year ago at my house. My windows are drafty. They're broken. These ones are perfect. They're easy to clean. Like I said, they keep the cold air out and the warm air in this time of year. They give free estimates. They're down at the Home and Garden Show. Make sure you go check out Meyer Door and Window. You guys have a wonderful weekend. You can also follow me. If I put this out yet, like I said, Facebook, Twitter, X, Rumble. Follow me on Instagram, Threads, TikTok. Send the podcast. You guys have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back Monday, with the greatest running back in Bengals history, Corey Mother Bleeping Dillon. Andrew Dawkins, I think it's going to be on Tuesday. I got a couple other good guests I'm lining up. So make sure you guys stick with the channel, stick with me, and let's have some fun. You guys have a great weekend. Throw it up. That's your sports, baby. See ya!